I never imagined I'd be the guy writing in a relationship forum about something like this, but here I am. Maybe I want someone to tell me I'm not crazy, or maybe I just need to get this off my chest before I lose my mind. It started about 2 months ago. My wife Lisa and I had been married for 5 years, comfortable in our routine, living in this small but cozy apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. I always thought we were solid. She was my best friend, my partner, the one I trusted more than anyone. I'd never doubted her. Then out of nowhere, I started feeling this strange, uneasy feeling. It wasn't obvious at first, just little things. Her phone pinging at odd hours, her becoming more secretive about her phone. I'd catch her glancing at her screen when she thought I wasn't looking. I told myself it was paranoia, that I was reading too much into it, but something about it gnawed at me. One night as I was coming home late from work, I saw her. Or rather, I saw them. I noticed her car parked a little too far down the street, not at our apartment. Instead, it was outside her childhood friend Mark's place. I didn't think much about it at first. Maybe she was just visiting a friend. But then I saw the lights on, saw them sneaking out of her apartment at midnight. She was in her pajamas, clutching her coat, trying not to be seen. My stomach dropped. I froze in the doorway, just watching. They tiptoed past the window, hand in hand, quiet as thieves. Her face was flushed, and Mark looked nervous but happy. I felt my jaw tighten, this strange coldness creeping up my spine. I kept my distance and waited until they disappeared. Then I went inside and started digging through her stuff. That's when I found it. Her phone tucked in her purse. I scrolled through her messages, and that's where everything unraveled. There were texts from Mark, flirty and intimate, saying things like, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and "I've missed you so much." And there were photos. Not just texts, but pictures, her in our bed, her in her pajamas, her and him in a cozy, intimate embrace. I saw her smiling in one, and I felt my stomach twist. It was more than suspicion. This was months, maybe longer. I sat there, clutching her phone so tight my fingers ached. My chest felt heavy, like someone had just punched me in the gut. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I'd just seen. I'd always joked she was too close to Mark as a kid, but I never thought it would come to this. I never wanted to know that she'd been lying right to my face about everything. I kept reading the messages, feeling a mix of rage and heartbreak. She kept saying how she was sorry, how she didn't mean to hurt me, and how she was confused. Honestly, I didn't care what her excuses were. The truth was clear, that this had been going on for months and I had no idea. I remember feeling the cold sweat trickle down my back as I closed her phone. My hands trembled and I sat there for a while, realizing I'd never looked at her the same way again. My mind raced. What now? How do I even confront her? How do I face someone I thought I knew? I knew I could. Keep quiet, not anymore, not after discovering this. But I also knew I had to be smart about it. Whatever I planned, it's gotta be precise, cold, and unforgiving. I didn't want to blow up my life over a mistake, but she made her choice. I'd let her know I saw everything and I'd make her regret it. That's when I started sketching out my plan. It's not going to be some childish revenge. I want her to see what she lost, to feel the sting of betrayal with no way to escape it. But first, I need to keep her in the dark long enough to make my move. So I sat there, heart pounding, staring at her phone, feeling the weight of what I'd just uncovered. And I wondered, how deep does this go? How many nights has she been sneaking out? How long have I been blind? All I knew was I wasn't going to let her get away with this without paying a price. I was done being the fool. I looked at her bedroom door, and for the first time I saw her not as my wife, but as someone I didn't recognize anymore. That's when the idea took root. I was going to make her regret every lie, every stolen moment. I just had to figure out how to do it right. Because once I start, there's no going back. I spent the next few days trying to process everything, but honestly, I was mostly angry. Every time I looked at her, I felt this tight knot forming in my stomach. I'd sit in silence, my fists clenched, trying to figure out the next move. All I could think about was how she'd betrayed me, how she'd managed to hide this for so long, sneaking out like some secret lover. The worst part, I still loved her, or at least I wanted to believe I did. But love doesn't mean blind trust, and I'd been played for a fool. My mind kept circling back to that night, her in her pajamas, sneaking out the door. What was she getting from him? Was it just sex? or something more? I didn't want to know. I just wanted her to feel the loss of everything she'd taken for granted. One night, I decided I had to confront her. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, wondering if I was crazy or if I just missed the signs. That evening, I waited until she came home from work. She seemed normal, smiling, chatting about her day. But I saw the flicker of guilt in her eyes, the way her lips pressed together just a little too tight. I knew she was hiding something. We sat down for dinner and I watched her, trying to keep my cool. I finally broke the silence. "Lisa," I said, my voice dry, "I know about Mark. I saw the messages. I know what you've been doing." She froze for a second, then looked away. Her hands shook slightly as she reached for her glass, trying to act casual. "It was just a mistake," she murmured. "It's over now. It was a moment of weakness." I clenched my fists so hard I felt my nails digging into my palms. "A mistake, that's all you think it was. For months, you've been sneaking around, lying to my face, and you call it a mistake." Her eyes welled up with tears. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a stupid slip-up. I swear I love you. It didn't mean anything." Love. I spat the word out, voice rising. "That's rich coming from someone who's been cheating on me behind my back. How do I believe anything you say now?" She looked like she wanted to say more, but the words got caught in her throat. I knew I had to be careful. My mind was racing with all the ways I could punish her, ways I'd been planning for days. I couldn't just walk away and pretend this was all a one-time thing. She needed to understand the damage she'd done, and that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I decided I'd wait until she was vulnerable, then strike. This was her moment to realize that I knew everything. I wanted her to feel the cold, hard truth of betrayal. The next step was to gather concrete evidence, stuff she couldn't deny, and then I'd show her just how much she'd ruined. The plan was simple: keep her thinking everything's normal, act like I don't know the full extent, but secretly gather proof of her ongoing infidelity. That meant I'd be snooping around, hacking her phone if I had to, and maybe even setting some traps. I wanted her to think she's still in control, but I'd be the one pulling all the strings. That night, I went to the bedroom when she was asleep, acting casual. I checked her purse, her phone, and then I found something unexpected: an itinerary she'd left open on her laptop. It was a list of dates, some of which matched her late nights out, but what caught my eye was a hotel booking for a nearby town. She planned a weekend getaway with Mark. My blood boiled. This wasn't some careless mistake, this was ongoing. She planned to run off with him again, and I was just a pawn in her game. That was all I needed to see. The betrayal ran deeper than I thought. I started thinking about what I'd do next. I knew I had to be strategic. I needed to make her see she's lost control completely before I made my move. Whatever I was going to do, it had to be perfect. I just hoped I was ready for the fallout. For now, I kept watching her, waiting for the right moment. And as she slept peacefully, unaware of what I knew, I felt the cold resolve settle in my chest. This was war, and I wasn't going down without a fight. If she thought she could hide her lies forever, she was dead wrong. The days that followed were like walking on a razor's edge. Every moment I wasn't working, I was planning. Every glance she threw my way felt loaded with guilt, even if she pretended everything was normal. I kept pretending too, acting like I was still the same husband she'd known for years. But inside, I was already seeing her as the traitor she'd become. I'd spent hours going through her phone, photos, messages, anything I could find. I'd even set up a hidden app on her phone to monitor her activity remotely, just to keep tabs. I wasn't going to let her slip away again. My goal was to catch her red-handed, and I'd do whatever it took. One afternoon, I found her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like usual. I took a deep breath and decided to ask her directly, hoping to push her into slipping up. "So, Lisa," I said casually, "are you planning that weekend with Mark?" She froze for a second, then forced a chuckle. "What? I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie," I said. "I saw your itinerary, the hotel reservation, the late-night texts. You're planning to run off with him, aren't you?" Her face paled. She looked down, her fingers trembling slightly. "It's not what you think. It's just a getaway, a break." "You're lying," I snapped. "You're planning to leave for good, aren't you? Just like that, abandoning everything, me, the life we built." She looked like she was about to cry, then finally spoke. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was confused, and Mark, he just made me feel alive again. I swear I love you. I want to fix this. That was a lie, and I knew it. Her words didn't match her actions, and I'd seen enough signs to know she wasn't coming back from this. I wanted to make her regret every second she thought she could get away with it. I decided to reveal my hand. I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages and pictures I'd saved. Her eyes widened, and she reached out. Abbott, but I pulled back. You see this, I told her coldly. All this time you've been lying to me. While I worked and tried to be a good husband, you were sneaking around with him, planning to run away. Well, I've got news for you. I'm not going to let you leave that easily. She looked shattered, tears streaming down her face. Please, she begged, voice trembling. Can we just talk? I didn't mean to hurt you this bad. I felt my jaw tighten. You lied, you cheated, and you thought you could get away with it. No more. I've made up my mind. You're done with this nonsense, and I've got a little surprise for you. Her eyes darted around, desperate. What do you mean? What are you talking about? I smiled coldly. You think I'm stupid? I've been planning this for days. You're going to wish you never crossed me. I want you to realize how much you've lost. I reached into my pocket, pulling out a small device I'd bought, something that would record her conversations without her knowing. I wasn't going to confront her outright just yet. I wanted her to feel the pressure, to realize I was always watching. That night I left her sitting on the couch, trembling, her face streaked with tears, clueless about what I was about to do next. I set the recorder in the room, then tiptoed out, my mind racing with plans. I knew I was playing a dangerous game, but I didn't care anymore. She made her choice, and I was going to make sure she paid for it. I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. The next step was simple. I'd let her think she's still in control, then I'd strike at her weakest point. I'd make sure she felt trapped, caught between her lies and the truth I now held in my hands. My stomach was tight, palms sweaty, but I kept my face calm. I wasn't done yet, not even close. The game was just starting, and I was going to win it. I looked out the window at the darkening sky, feeling a strange mixture of cold determination and adrenaline. Whatever happened next, I knew I wouldn't be the same, and neither would she. The next few days were a blur of quiet tension. I continued to monitor her, knowing full well she was probably suspicious. I kept the recorder running, pulled up her messages when she wasn't looking, and planned my next move carefully. Every time she touched her phone or glanced nervously around the room, I felt a rush of satisfaction mixed with disgust. One evening, she came home later than usual, smelling of perfume and something faintly alcohol. She looked guilty, eyes darting everywhere, trying to act casual. I could see the guilt painted all over her face, but she still thought she could hide it. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, and I finally decided enough was enough. I needed to confront her directly and lay the groundwork for what was coming. So, you're planning to leave this weekend, I said, voice flat. I know about the hotel reservation and the texts. You really think you can just walk away from everything, huh? She swallowed hard, her hands trembling. It's not like that. I was just trying to figure out what I want. I need some space. To think. Space. I shot back. You've had plenty of space for months. You've been sneaking around, lying to my face. And now you want space. Goes to show how much you respect what we had. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was confused. Mark made me feel alive again. I didn't think it would get this bad. I leaned forward, my voice colder than ice. You don't get to call it confused anymore. You've been cheating on me for months, and I've been blind to it. Now I see it all, the messages, the plans, the nights out. And I want you to know I've recorded everything. Her face went pale, a flush of panic washing over her. You're recording me? That's illegal. Not when you're cheating, I said, shrugging. I'll just make sure everyone hears the truth. You're not going anywhere this weekend. I want you to think about what you've done, about what you've lost. She looked like she wanted to say something, but she couldn't. I saw her chest rise and fall rapidly, her hands clenched into fists. I could tell she was trying to hold herself together, but she was cracking. That night I set up a little more, planned to confront her with everything I had, but I also knew I needed to keep her off guard. I wanted her to believe she still had some control, some way out. That's when I realized I could turn this around completely. I spent hours preparing a document, screenshots of the texts, copies of the hotel reservation, the itinerary she'd left open. I printed everything out secretly, enough to make her see she had nowhere to run. I also bought a second phone, one she didn't know about, and installed a hidden app to track her movements if she tried to sneak out again. By the time I was done, I felt a strange sense of calm, mixed with a gnawing hunger for revenge. I'd been patient enough, and now it was time to escalate. She thought she'd be free to go, but I was about to make her reconsider everything. The next morning, I waited until she left for work. Then I slipped the printed evidence into an envelope and left it on the kitchen table. I also placed the new burner phone somewhere she'd find it, just enough to rattle her. When she got home that evening, I wanted her to see that I wasn't bluffing. I had proof everything and I was ready to use it. She came in, tired but eager to talk. She saw the envelope and the phone sitting there, hesitated, then slowly approached. "What's this?" she asked, voice trembling. "Your future," I said softly, "or your past, depending on what you choose to do with it." She looked at the papers, the evidence of her lies and betrayal. Her hands shook uncontrollably. I saw her face flicker between guilt, fear, and something else, desperation. "I told you I loved you," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please don't do this." "Love," I scoffed. "You don't get to use that word anymore. You lost it the moment you started sneaking around behind my back. Now you have a choice: stay and face the consequences, or walk out that door and never come back." She looked at me, eyes swimming with tears, and finally she broke down. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'll do anything to fix this." That's when I made my decision clear. "No, you don't get to fix this. You get to live with." Did. The plan is simple. You're not going anywhere until I say. And when I decide you're done, you're leaving for good. No more lies, no more hiding. I handed her the keys to her car and the apartment. "Take these. Think about what you've lost and what you've gained, because I promise once I walk out that door, I won't be coming back." She stared at the keys, trembling, then looked up at me with pleading eyes. "Please." "No," I cut her off sharply. "You made your choice. Now face the consequences." I left her standing there, clutching the keys, knowing I'd just crossed a line. The pain was sharp, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I finally had the power back in my hands. And as I walked out, I realized one thing: I'd never forget what she did, and I'd never forgive her. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming myself from the wreckage of her betrayal. The silence after I left her there, clutching the keys, was deafening. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears, a strange mixture of adrenaline and emptiness. I knew I'd made the right move. She was finally exposed, and I had the proof. Still, as I walked out into the night, a part of me felt hollow. That hollow feeling stayed with me as I drove away, knowing this wasn't just a game. It was my life unraveling, and I was the one pulling the strings. Over the next few days, I stayed away from the apartment. I didn't want to risk her trying to reach me or pull some stunt to fix her mess. I also knew I had to be careful. She was probably panicked, trying to figure out what to do next. I kept my phone off most of the time, letting her stew in her own guilt. I wasn't rushing into anything. I wanted her to see she'd lost control completely. One evening, I finally decided to check in. I'd given her time to stew, but I needed to know if she was trying to fix things or just planning her next move. I texted her. "We need to talk. Meet me at the coffee shop in an hour." Simple, direct. I wanted to see her face when she realized I wasn't going to chase her. Responded almost immediately. "Why, what's there to say?" I didn't reply right away. Instead, I prepared myself, knowing this conversation could go one of two ways. I was ready for her tears, her apologies, or her angry protests. I just wanted clarity. What was she really thinking? When she arrived, she looked tired, eyes red-rimmed, her face pale. I studied her carefully as she sat down across from me. No more pretending everything was fine. I saw the guilt in her eyes, the regret she couldn't hide. "Lisa," I started, my voice steady. "You're not going to like what I have to say, but I need to be honest. I've given this a lot of thought. I've seen everything. You lied, cheated, planned to leave. And I've decided I'm not just going to forgive and forget." Her eyes widened, but she stayed silent. "I want you to know," I continued, "that I've made arrangements. I've been talking to a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. This isn't a threat, it's happening. You chose to betray me, and I won't stay around just to watch you walk away with what you think you deserve." She looked shell-shocked, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Please, she whispered. Don't do this. I'll do anything, anything. I cut her off sharply. You mean like come back home and be honest, stop sneaking around, or do you mean just trying to fix this with more lies? Her voice broke. I can't lose you, please, I'll do whatever it takes. I shook my head slowly. It's too late for that. You had your chance, Lisa. But I can't keep living like this, wondering what's real, who's lying to me. I need to know I can trust someone again, and I sure as hell can't trust you anymore. She looked like she was about to break apart. Tears streamed down her cheeks and she reached across the table, grabbing my hand. I love you, she choked out. I never wanted to hurt you. Can't we just forget this happened? I pulled my hand back gently but firmly. No, because I've seen enough. I've got all the proof, screenshots, messages, the hotel reservation. You're not going to use love as an excuse anymore. You made your choice, and now you're going to live with it. Her shoulders sagged and she looked defeated. I knew she was trying to hold on to some hope, but I had made up my mind. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, not after what I'd uncovered. I stood up, reached into my pocket, and handed her a small envelope. Here's the last of what I'm leaving you, I said softly. All the evidence I've gathered. Consider it my farewell gift. You wanted to be free, so I'm giving you that freedom. But don't expect me to be waiting in the wings when you realize what you lost. I turned to go, feeling lighter but also heavy with regret. I knew I'd be hurting for a while, but I also knew I'd finally taken control. I'd finally retaken my life from her betrayal. Before I stepped away, I looked back at her. Make your peace, Lisa, because this is the end of us. Walking out of that coffee shop, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with bitterness. I'd done what I had to do. She could try to spin her story all she wanted, but the truth was out, and I was finally free from the lies, the betrayal, and the pain. The old life was gone. Now it was just me, rebuilding from the wreckage. And for the first time in a long while, I felt I might just be okay. Because sometimes the only way to truly move on is to cut the cord and finally walk away. The days that followed felt surreal. I went through the motions, packing up her things, handing over the keys, and finalizing the divorce papers. It was a strange, cold ritual that left me feeling hollow, yet strangely lighter. I kept replaying everything. The late-night shadows, the stolen moments, her trembling voice during our last conversation. It was over and I had finally taken control. One afternoon, I sat alone in the quiet of my apartment, finally free of her presence. I looked around at the empty space where she once was, feeling a complex tangle of relief, anger, and grief. I knew I'd be okay, but it wouldn't be easy. Trust had been shattered, the foundation of my life ripped out from under me. Yet somehow I felt stronger. I'd faced the worst and survived. I took a deep breath and looked at the small envelope I'd left her with the evidence. I knew she'd see it eventually once she realized I wasn't bluffing. She'd understand. Every message, every plan, every moment of betrayal, all laid bare. That's what I wanted, to make her see the depth of her mistake, the pain she'd caused, and the life she'd almost destroyed. I didn't want her to walk away believing she'd gotten away with it. I wanted her to remember what she lost. Now, I was finally ready to move on. I started by blocking her from all my social media, deleting her number and turning off any lingering connection. I needed space to heal, to rebuild what she'd broken. I'd learned something valuable: trust was fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. But I also learned that I was stronger than I thought, capable of standing up to betrayal and resilient enough to start over. Looking back, I don't regret what I did. I don't regret exposing her lies or standing up for myself. It was painful, yes, probably the hardest thing I've ever gone through, but it was necessary. Because someone who cheats, lies, and plans to leave behind everything they once valued doesn't deserve my loyalty or my forgiveness. As I sealed the divorce papers and handed over the keys, I made a silent vow. No more hiding from the truth. No more pretending. It's better to face the pain and come out stronger than to live in a lie. I'm not perfect. I'll carry scars for a while, but I will rebuild. And that's what I want to tell anyone out there who finds themselves in a similar situation. Sometimes the only way to truly heal is to cut away the lies, face the truth head-on, and walk away with your head held high. Trust, once broken, is hard to mend, but your life isn't over. It's just a new chapter. Take control, own your story, and never let betrayal define your future.